Hey everyone,
Hey guys.
welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor video. Today we're going to be talking about credit card rewards, travel hacking for travel therapists. We talked about this probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but recently we've done some school presentations and we talked about how we kind of transitioned into semi-retirement as travelers, and we started traveling the world internationally, going on a lot of trips. And a lot of people often wonder, like, well, how are you able to take this time off? Obviously, you can take time off as a traveler, but how are you able to travel internationally for long periods of time and afford to do that? And a big part of that is credit card rewards and travel hacking. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, our story, um, in regards to travel hacking, credit card rewards, and then um, what we'd recommend for other travelers. So Whitney's going to introduce us, and then we'll go ahead and start talking about it.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys. For those that may not know us, we are Whitney and Jared Kazaza. We're both traveling doctors of physical therapy. We started traveling 10 years ago when we were new grad physical therapists. As Jared mentioned, we have traveled quite a bit outside of being travel therapists. We've traveled the world in our free time. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we've been able to achieve and a little bit about how we've been able to do that. We do get a lot of questions and a lot of interest from other folks that are interested in that as well. Before we dive into tonight's topic, I do have a couple of announcements to make. It's almost the end of the year, so we have a MedBridge sale going on right now for Black Friday. And then we're also going to be doing a sale coming up on our travel therapy course. In our travel therapy course, we also teach quite a bit about finances and financial independence as well. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that kind of stuff, you can keep an eye out for our travel therapy course sale. That'll be for Cyber Week after Thanksgiving. Also, it's almost time for our end of year giveaways. So at the end of every year, we do over $1,000 in giveaways. The big one is going to be for those of you that took travel therapy contracts with some of our recommended recruiters. So if you did take contracts with one of our recommended recruiters this year, just go onto our website at traveltherapymentor.com and click on the giveaway link on the menu, fill out the contract completion form and get that into us. That way we can get you entered to win one of 5 $250 gift cards. You can also get entered to win a $100 gift card if you leave us a review either on our Facebook page or on Apple Podcasts. And then also if you're a member of our course group, if you leave a review for the course, you'll get entered to win a $100 giveaway for that as well.
Yep. Okay.
And also just want to say hello to anyone that is watching live on either Instagram or Facebook. Feel free to say hi in the comments. If you have questions as we go through, you can leave them in the comments and we'll answer them during the video. And then if you guys have any questions after the video, you can always send us a message.
Yeah, I think we have volume. Let us know if you can't hear us, because I think it was like 3 weeks ago, we recorded a video on Facebook and there was no volume the whole time. Luckily, we salvaged it from Instagram, but hopefully you can hear us.
Yeah, that wasn't good for the podcast and for YouTube, unfortunately, because we didn't really have our good audio, but hopefully you guys can hear us this time. But yeah, say hello in the comments. Let us know you're watching. Hit the thumbs up button.
All right. So in terms of credit card rewards, I feel like at this point we're kind of experts at it, because I got my first credit card the day I turned 18. So I was always a finance nerd, and I remember being 17 years old and looking at what credit card I was going to get first, because I knew that you could get these sign-up bonuses and you could get cash back on your purchases, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do these purchases anyway. I should at least get some cash back for it. And so I had a bank account, of course, use my debit card all the time, but you don't get anything for that. So I was like, okay, if I can sign up for a credit card and start earning some rewards for this, that would be wonderful. So my first credit card was the day I turned 18, which now was 19 years ago, and I still have that card. Back then, though, I didn't really make much money, so I didn't qualify for a lot of different cards. And during college, I wasn't making any money, so I didn't apply for cards for quite a while. And then I got really, really into it in 2015 when we graduated. So it's been 10 years now that both Whitney and I have really been into credit card sign-up bonuses and rewards. And at this point now, I've gotten 64 cards in 10 years. And I think Whitney's probably somewhere around half of that, maybe 30 to 40. So between the two of us, we've gotten 100 different credit cards for the sign-up bonuses and for cash back and things like that. So it's been on average 10 credit cards a year, at least for each of us. For me, 6 or more per year. And we've gotten an incredible amount of value from it.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit more background, that's kind of where Jared's coming from, and he's taught me everything that I know about credit cards and finances and how to use them strategically. But I came from not having any kind of finance background. The only thing that I knew about credit cards growing up is, I came from a family that had used credit cards the wrong way, and maybe you're coming from the same standpoint. So when Jared started telling me about credit cards, I just always thought credit cards were bad news. I thought, you know, if you use credit cards, you just get into debt and, you know, they're not good. So you should just stay away from them. But what I didn't realize is that you can really use them to your advantage. And we're going to talk about some of those strategies of how you can use them effectively and not get yourself into debt using them. So definitely don't use them the wrong way to spend money that you don't have, but you can take advantage of them to earn points.
Yeah. So in terms of what we've gotten for that 100 or so cards that we've signed up for, I've written a bunch of articles about, like, I think the last one I wrote was 2 years ago about like the total dollar value I've gotten, the total number of flights, total number of hotel nights, and all that. I need to update that article. I probably will in the next month or so. Now that it's been 10 years. Go back.
I was just pulling up that article that he wrote about 8 years, and the numbers were pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So I went back and just looked briefly. So a lot of people know about cashback from sign-up bonuses, and people know about earning flights from credit cards and things, but a lot of people don't pay that much attention to the hotel possibilities. And I didn't really know much about that either until 10 years ago. And we really got into traveling internationally. We had a lot of hotels. You know, we go to conferences, at least 2 or 3 conferences a year, so we need hotel nights for that. So far in the last 10 years, we've got 166 free hotel nights, which is pretty insane. That's, I don't know what the average is. I guess it's like 17 nights per year of free hotels for the last 10 years. And then in terms of flights, we have gotten all but one international flight for free. And if you guys have been following us for a while, we've been traveling internationally since 2018, at least, except for this year, at least once or twice, sometimes 3 times per year. So all of those flights were free. I think that's, I don't know the exact number, but probably around 20 international flights that we've gotten for free. And then domestic flights, it's at least a couple dozen, but probably more than that.
Yeah, I was adding up. I know we've taken at least 6 like major international trips where it was like multi-month, but then on top of that, we took several trips to like Mexico and the Caribbean. So it's probably, yeah, you're probably right. It's probably close to 20 because it's probably close to 10 round trip. There was only one that we weren't able to find a good redemption for, and I think was that coming back from New Zealand around Christmas, and we had waited too late to book it, and so we ended up paying cash for that one. But other than that, all the trips that we've taken to Europe, South America, Asia, Mexico,
Aruba.
Yeah, like we've so many international flights for free using points. It's been pretty crazy.
So more than a dozen international flights for each of us for free, and then yeah, at least a couple dozen domestic flights for each of us. So that is a ton of value, plus 166 free nights, plus a lot of cash back and stuff from these sign-up bonuses. And so in total, I estimate that we probably have gotten about somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 in flights, hotels, and cash back over the last 10 years. So we're probably averaging somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. And so, I mean, that goes a really long way towards paying for most of the trips we've done. And if you guys go back, anyone that's been following us for a long time, I've kept track of every expense on all of these long international trips we've ever taken. And one international flight, there's situations where we've saved $1,200, $1,500 per person just on one flight. And so if you don't have to pay for your flights to go somewhere internationally and you get some free hotel nights along the way, you can really travel for pretty cheaply. And the best example of that was a trip we took to Asia in 2018. We were there for 5 months and I spent less than $6,000 for 5 months. So you can travel extremely cheaply if you use credit card rewards and travel hacking. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that. And I think a lot of other people could benefit quite a bit from that, especially travelers who have a lot of time to take off. And I think 90% of people want to travel internationally. There's not that many people that want to avoid it.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about this. People see our pictures on Instagram and stuff of like our international trips, and they want to know, you know, were we working there? And we weren't. We don't take jobs overseas as travel therapists, but we utilize the flexibility of having, you know, breaks between contracts to go and travel abroad. And now over the years, we've seen more and more people starting to do that as well. It's becoming more common that we see a lot of other travel nurses, travel therapists taking time off between contracts. You know, maybe you take a couple weeks off, a couple months off. We've done up to 5 months abroad. More recently, our trips were usually like 2 months abroad because of that flexibility. But in addition to that, you also need to be savvy with your finances. You need to be able to afford to take that time off. So you need to be somewhat frugal, you know, both when you're taking your contracts and saving up toward travel, but also trying to be frugal with your travel. And by using the credit card points, your money's going to go a lot further because you're not dishing out thousands of dollars for your flights and maybe your hotels. So yeah, we've used a lot of different strategies to be able to achieve these goals of traveling so much. And then just to give an overview of how much we've traveled outside of work, we've now been to all 7 continents. We've been to all 50 US states. We've only worked in 5 of them. So the other 45 were just from weekend trips, road trips, things like that, big long road trips that we've done. We've been to, I think it's 56 countries. We've been to all the US national parks, and we've been to a lot of national parks internationally as well in other countries. So we've traveled a lot, and we didn't spend cash for a lot of that because we tried to be as frugal as possible. So there's definitely a lot of strategies you guys can use to do some of these things as well.
And since 2018, I think we spent close to 2 years in total out of the country between 2018 and the beginning of 24. So in like a 6-year period, we spent like 2 years out of the country, and none of that would have been possible. I mean, it would have been possible, but it would have been way more expensive and a lot. We probably wouldn't have done it, honestly, if we had to pay cash for all the hotels and all the flights.
Yeah. So yeah, there's, hopefully you guys can take advantage of some of this stuff too. It's available for you guys to do. Now, I will say a lot of like what we've done has been more to the extreme. I think in 1 year, Jared signed up for like 20 credit cards or something crazy back in the beginning. And now it's been less and less over the years. And, the credit card companies are getting a little more savvy where they're not letting you take advantage of them quite as much. So you have to, use some certain strategies. So you maybe can't do it to that extreme, but you could definitely get, a free vacation per year. It would be very reasonable.
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, anyone that reads what I write and knows me, I get a little obsessive about things. I definitely got obsessive about sign-up bonuses and credit cards early on, and that has definitely moderated over time. And so, yeah, it is harder now than it used to be, but I would say even now, we each probably get 4 to 6 credit cards per year. Very easy, very reasonable to do that. Meet the sign-up bonuses, not a big deal. And we probably get probably around $5,000, $6,000 in value each from those bonuses. So I think that is completely doable for pretty much anybody.
If anybody is watching live, we'd love to hear from you. Are you utilizing credit card points? Is this something you've started to work on or that you're thinking about working on? Let us know. And then also, if you have any questions about how this stuff works, leave that in the comments.
So some of the key things to remember if you were going to do something like this is, first thing is you would never carry a balance on your credit cards. So like I said, back when I was 17, I was looking into credit cards. I was looking for ways that I could get cash back on stuff that I already spend money on. Of course, I was never going to pay interest on any of the cards. I've had, like I said, that card for 19 years. I've had 64 credit cards in the last 10 years. I've never paid any interest on any of the cards. So you have to be able to pay off your cards every month. You never would want to carry a balance. Otherwise, that completely negates this whole thing. Like if you're paying $1,000 in interest a year, then you're not really getting much value from the reward. So you need to do everything possible to avoid interest.
And along those same lines, if you currently have credit card debt, one of the first things you need to work toward is becoming debt-free in that regard. You want to get rid of that credit card debt as quickly as possible before you start getting more credit cards with the goal of utilizing them to get points. Credit card debt is quite often some of the highest interest rate debt that you're going to have. So as far as like general financial advice, you'll see some financial gurus saying, pay off the highest number of debt that you have first, but we've always been proponents of paying off the highest interest rate first, and credit cards are almost always going to be your highest interest rate. So get rid of that credit card debt to start with before you start trying to go down this path of using them the right way.
Yep. The biggest bang for your buck is always going to be the sign-up bonuses. So like I said, the reason we've opened so many cards over time is because a lot of cards have these big sign-up bonuses you can get for the first 3 months or 6 months, or whatever the terms are, but usually it's spend a certain amount of money within the first 3 months and you get a certain number of points or miles or free hotel nights or cash back. And that's the reason we like churn through all these cards. And yes, you can get recurring rewards on cards. And another big benefit of using credit cards for all of your purchases, there's not been a purchase I've made in 19 years since I turned 18, literally, that I bought something that I could have used a credit card and I didn't. I use credit cards for everything. And I've gotten at least 2% cash back on every purchase I've ever made for anything that I could pay for a credit card with. So the minimum that you can get cash back wise on a recurring basis is 2%. I would always recommend having a 2% card that you can just use for regular purchases. But in some cases, cards will give you even more than 2% back on certain categories. So maybe like restaurants or gas stations or whatever, depending on the card. So you can get those recurring amounts, but if you think about it, say you spend 40,000 a year, you get 2%. That's a decent amount of money, but it's nothing compared to the probably 5,000 or 6,000 we're making from the sign-up bonuses each year. So the sign-up bonus is where you get the most money. Of course, you can use the cashback categories and all that stuff to get extra throughout time, but really it's the sign-up bonuses where all the money's made.
Yeah, and for those of you that aren't familiar with sign-up bonuses, we are going to mention some current offers that are out there. Jared just updated our credit card list with some current offers that we'll go over here in a little while. But basically, it'll be something like, say that Chase is offering 60,000 points when you spend $3,000 in the first 3 months of having the card. That's a pretty typical offer. It'd be spend $3,000 in the first 3 months, and you'll get this huge lump sum of points. And there's going to be all different brands. Some of them might be toward hotel points. Some of them might be toward airline miles. Some of them could just be general cash, like that you could use toward statement credits or other redemptions. And every awards program is going to have different point values, and that's kind of getting more into the strategies and the weeds of it. But basically, you're going to get a big lump sum of points by doing this initial sign-up offer versus the type of cash back and points that you're going to get over time by just doing everyday spending.
Yeah. We got a couple comments on Instagram. We'll go over those in just a second. If you have any questions or comments, leave those. So this important thing to think about too with credit card rewards is that you have to kind of have a strategy in terms of like how you're going to apply. Like Whitney said, the limitations, I guess, have gotten more severe over time for the different credit card issuers. So people like me were obviously taking advantage of the credit card issuers. They don't want people to be making all this money off their cards. They want people that are going to have a card for 20 years and carry a balance and pay interest every month, and they make a lot of money off those people. They lose money on people that sign up for it and get the sign-up bonuses, keep it for a year, and then cancel. So over time, the credit card issuers get more and more strict on what they'll approve, how many cards you can have, how many cards in a certain number of time. So you have to be smart about how you apply, what issuers, you have to know the rules. It kind of sounds daunting, but it's really not. The most strict right now is Chase. You can only have 5 cards in the last 24 months and be approved for a new Chase card. So you just kind of have to think about like, okay, if that's the case and I'm applying for 3 or 4 a year, then I need to be strategic with which cards I apply for at what time. Yeah, sounds overwhelming, sounds difficult, but it really is not. And once you get into it, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, so when it comes to those Chase cards, if you're looking at the different offers and you do think that you want to get some of those good Chase offers, then you'd want to apply for those first and try to qualify for those first. Because once you've had more than 5 credit cards of any brand within a 24-month period, you will not be eligible to apply for any Chase cards during that 24-month period until 24 months have passed with less than 5. So if you're trying to, churn out a few a year, try to get the Chase ones first, and then once you hit 5 or more, you'd have to apply for some other cards that are not Chase cards until you get back past that 5 within 24.
Yep. Another big thing to think about is annual fees. So a lot of these cards will have the annual fee that waived the first year. You don't have to worry about it, and then you cancel after the first year, so you never pay an annual fee. But some do have an annual fee the first year. Some have high annual fees. So you don't want to keep a card that you're not using after the first year. That was one of the questions, actually. How long do you keep the credit cards open? Does closing it change your credit score? If there's an annual fee, we always close after the first year. But keep it open for at least the first year. Otherwise, it's kind of a red flag to these credit card issuers if you're opening a card, closing it 4 months later, opening a card, closing it 6 months later. So I would always wait for at least a year. When the annual fee posts on your account, you see it, you can call in and say, hey, I'm not really using this card. I want to close it. Can you refund the fee? And they always will, as long as it's within 30 days or so. So avoid annual fees. That you just kind of lose money on that after you get the bonuses. So for any of the expensive cards with $95, some of them have $700 annual fees now. We're not keeping those long term. We're canceling it after the first year. And we would only ever get those cards in the first place if the sign-up bonus justified whatever fee there was. And in most cases, like the really expensive annual fee cards, like $700 a year, you'd probably get $1,200 or $1,300 just in cash back or airline miles or whatever the first year, which would justify that fee. And then you cancel after the first year, and you never have to worry about it again.
There's a couple instances where we have kept cards that had a somewhat low annual fee, especially if we got, I think there's a couple of the hotel ones where each year you get an award night. So you get a free award night, which is usually a greater value than the fee of like $75 or $95. So occasionally we will keep those open. But if you are in a situation where you're like, I don't want to keep this card more than a year because it has an annual fee, sometimes you can also call the credit card issuer and ask if you can downgrade that card to a different card in their line that doesn't have a fee. And then this won't affect your credit as much because it won't actually be closing the account. It's just changing from one card to another, but one that doesn't have the fee. So it's always worth asking that if you are concerned about the credit. But we will get into answering your question more about like what actually does affect your credit. And fortunately, canceling cards after a year or so doesn't affect your credit as much as you would think.
Yep. So Ali said, I use credit cards frequently for miles, even bought my car with credit card and paid it off the next day to get points. Yeah, we've definitely done similar things to that. When we bought our RV, I think we put like 5,000 down and asked if they would take a credit card. So we got $100 in cash back or something from that. It was pretty nice to just be able to put money on a credit card instead of just writing a check.
Yeah, and it just depends on the business on whether they'll let you pay with a credit card and that sort of thing. I think the reason we were only able to do a certain amount for the RV because they wouldn't let us pay the whole thing on a credit card. If we could have, we would have.
Sure.
But yeah, that's great that you're able to get the points back for that.
So that question was, how long do you keep the credit cards open? Does it closing change your credit score? Yeah, we'll go over the credit score aspect in just a minute. And then yay or nay on the Gemini card, hopefully Bitcoin returns to 100K before New Year's Day. Yeah, hopefully. I'm not a huge fan of any cards that earn crypto. One, they usually don't have very good sign-up bonuses. Two, theoretically, you should keep your cost basis. Right now, if you sell crypto at a gain then or at a loss, it's a taxable event. So these credit card rewards, even though the credit card rewards themselves are not taxable, they're like a return. Basically, they're seen as a rebate in terms of the IRS. But if you get them as a rebate, say the price is 100,000 when you get the Bitcoin, and then the price goes to 300,000. If you ever sell that Bitcoin or use it in a transaction, theoretically you need to pay on the gains that are incurred on that through time. So instead, I would rather use a card like, say, a Robinhood card where you get 3% cash back on everything and buy Bitcoin with it instead of using a card where you get, say, 2% back in Bitcoin and you have this extra accounting type hurdle. So I would get a card, earn 3%, save it up over time, use that to purchase crypto instead of getting it directly through the credit card, if that makes sense.
All right, so we're going to go through some strategies about how you might utilize credit cards. There's a lot to learn. You can start off small. If you're confused by how to use it for travel, a lot of people start their credit card reward journey with just cashback cards, and I think that's a great way to start. Also, if you're trying to build your credit early on, you may need to apply for some of those that don't have huge point values or anything like that. They're just more basic cards just to get your foot in the door and start building your credit and start getting used to using credit cards the right way. But if you want to start getting into more of the travel hacking, we think it's, not quite as reasonable to get, a dozen cards a year like we've done at some points. But for most people, getting 4 cards a year should be fairly reasonable, 3 or 4. And the reason for that is the sign-up offers typically have a 3-month spending time frame. So if you're getting one in January and you're going to spend from January to March in that 3-month time period to meet the spending requirement, and then you're going to put all your spending on that card for those first 3 months, get your spending requirement done, get your points. Now you're done with that card. Now, okay, in March, go ahead and apply for your next card and do the same thing for the next 3 months. That's going to be your main card you're going to do your spending on. You're going to get your points for your sign-up offer. Put that card away. Now, number 3 and number 4. And that would be a good way to do it. I think that's fairly reasonable to do that many per year.
And doing it that way, it's fairly easy to keep track of everything and stay organized. So I would always recommend having a spreadsheet of some sort with just the different terms about the card, like how much you have to spend, what you should get, any annual fees to think about, or any extra benefits. A lot of cards have additional benefits that you can get throughout time with them. So just to stay on top of all that stuff. 4 a year makes it pretty simple. Like what you said, the first year when I had 20 cards, it was extremely hard to stay on top of everything. Like the spending and how I was going to organize everything was hard. And so I think I got 20 the first year. Second year, I got like 12, and that was stressful. So 4 is reasonable. Anything more than that, it starts to get a little more complicated. And like what you said, I think 4 is perfect because most of the credit cards, it's 3 months to do the spending, and then you move on to the next card. And then after that whole year is up, you cancel the initial card, and it's just like this rolling thing where you're getting a new card every quarter, essentially.
Yeah, you do want to keep track of this stuff because you want to make sure that you hit your spending requirement in the allotted time frame. It would be terrible to have spent, $2,800 and you meant to spend 3,000, and then the whole thing was wasted because you forgot that, oh, my end date for this is this date. So write down your start date and your end date for your 3-month period. Make sure you hit your spending requirement. Some of the credit card apps are really helpful now. It didn't used to be this way, but it'll actually show you how much you've spent toward your bonus, which is super nice. I used to be sitting there on my statement and like adding up how much I'd spent to make sure I hit my spending requirement. So yeah, make sure you're hitting your spending requirement, make sure your dates, and then write down the date that you got it. And then if there's going to be an annual fee, you want to make a note of like the date you need to close it. I usually put a note in my calendar on my phone of like, March 2026. Okay, I need to remember to call and close this card. If you forget, then if it has an annual fee, you'll see it get posted on your statement and you're like, oh crap, the annual fee came up, now I'll call, and they'll take it back if you decide to cancel the card. But it's usually good just to write yourself a note, a reminder to close it when it's time to close it. And then the other thing is you want to keep track if any of the points, depending on the organization, if they expire. So you want to make sure to keep track of that.
Something I've learned over time in terms of the expiration and stuff is that ideally you want to get points that you know you're going to use soon. And there's a variety of reasons for that. One, some of them expire. Sometimes it's like after 2 years of inactivity, they expire. Also, sometimes, well, not sometimes, but always, over time, points lose value. So those points I earned back in 2015, if I had kept those, say, American Airlines miles or Delta miles or whatever, those miles don't buy nearly as much in terms of flights now as they did 10 years ago. So if you're just holding miles or hotel points or whatever for a long period of time, they gradually get devalued over time. And it's basically like inflation, how inflation works with the dollar. The companies are incentivized to devalue these points because they want you to be able to get less over time. But if you use them as soon as you get them or soon after you use them, then that's the best strategy.
So as far as utilizing your points in order to take some trips for free, you really have to plan ahead. You can't be like, oh, right now it's November and I want to take a trip in February. That's probably not enough time for you to get the card, get approved for the card, do the spending, wait for your statement to close so you get the points, then book the travel. So you're probably looking more like, I'd say about at least 6 months in most cases, depending on the airline or whatever you're using the points for. Now that may not be the case always for ones where they're more like statement credits. So there's certain credit cards where like if you pay for a rental car or pay for a hotel with the credit card, you can just log in and redeem your points later retroactively toward your statement. That's different than like using your rewards to book a flight in advance. But you definitely want to kind of plan ahead and get an idea of what you're going to use it for. So if you're like, I want to take a trip to the Caribbean, we'll start mocking up some things. Okay, so type in, which airlines fly from my home airport to the Caribbean. And it doesn't do you any good to get Southwest points if Southwest doesn't fly there, or Alaska Airlines points if Alaska Airlines doesn't fly there. So think like, oh, am I a Delta hub or am I an American Airlines hub? And then see what offers are out there, and the offers change all the time. There's also websites that you can go to that'll show past offers, and people will talk in these forums about like, oh, it's likely that offer is going to come around again. Maybe right now it's 60,000, but it's likely in the next couple months 100,000 might come back up. Jared keeps an eye on these things, and then he'll update our sheet with some of the current offers. So you want to mock up some things and just kind of get an idea of which credit card might be the best one for you to get for your trip that you're trying to plan.
Yep. We've had situations where I planned in advance. In 2016, this was soon after I really got into credit card rewards, we got an entire trip to Jamaica. I think we were there 6 nights. The flights were free. The hotel was free. Everything was free. It was like we spent less money in Jamaica going there for 6 days than we would have back home because all of our food and everything, it was an all-inclusive. It was all free. So in some cases, like you can completely plan a 100% free trip, but you just need to plan ahead and get the right travel or the right airline miles, and then figure out which hotels you're going to stay at and try to get points for that. Not easy to do that, but I think in most cases people are just going to either get a free flight or get a few free hotel nights, and that will decrease your costs. But if you plan ahead and you really dive into it, you can definitely plan entire free trips for you or family or whoever.
Yeah. We've racked up so many over time that we will kind of just like keep a bank of some. For example, like we always have like Hyatt points or Hyatt nights or whatever. And so quite often when we're planning a trip, Jared will just be like, well, is there a Hyatt? Because we have Hyatt points. Like if there's a Hyatt there, we can stay at the Hyatt. And I'll be like, well, no, there's this other one. He's like, well, we don't have points for that one. So sometimes we just kind of keep a bank of points that we know we can use. But it just depends on how aggressive you're going to be with this and how many points you're going to get. Quite often, you might just be getting the points for that one trip and just knowing ahead of time that's what you're going to use it for. Yep. All right, so we're going to go over some common questions and concerns, which we already got a couple in the comments here, but in the past questions that we've gotten. One, for somebody who's just getting started, how can you qualify for cards or build your credit to be able to get some of these more premium cards?
So if you don't have any credit at all, but you have a job, in a lot of cases, you can easily get approved for one of the lower tier cards. And those still, I think those are good ones to start with anyway. On our credit card offer page that I update, I got a couple on there that are just like very basic beginner cards that are easy to get approved for pretty much anybody. And they'll often have like $100, $200 sign up offers. They're not anything really crazy, but that gets your foot in the door. You can kind of see what the process is like, and then also start building your credit from there. If you have really bad credit already, sometimes you won't even be able to get approved for those. But there are secured credit cards that you can get that will essentially, it's almost like a debit card because you send them money. They hold the money as your balance, as your credit limit essentially, and you spend against that, and then you pay it back off. And then you can, when you cancel the card or whatever, you get the money back. But it kind of works in your favor because you're building credit. It works in their favor because they don't have any risk. If you didn't pay the balance, they already have your money. So the secured cards can be, those are pretty much only for people that already have really bad credit. Say you've defaulted in the past or bankruptcy or something like that. Then you would consider those. But for most cases, some of the lower tier cards are pretty easy to get approved for. You start slow and you build up over time.
Yeah. And so, hopefully you'll be able to build up, but a lot of folks will be like, I applied for the, whatever this higher one, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and it's like, I got declined. It's like, okay, maybe your credit history isn't quite good enough yet for that higher tier card, but maybe you can get this other one, the Chase Freedom, for now, and then later you might qualify for the Sapphire.
Yep.
Okay, another question we get is, how do you meet the spending requirement? What if you're concerned that you're not going to be able to spend enough to get the spending requirement done?
That is, yeah, it's actually in a lot of cases now, inflation has actually worked in our favor for that, because there was a time in 2015 where Whitney and I were not spending much money at all. I mean, in terms of like expenses that we'd be able to pay with credit cards, there were some months where we'd have like $500 or $600 in total that we spent. And so how are we supposed to meet a $3,000 spending requirement? There's a lot of ways to do it. There used to be really creative ways that were kind of like sketchy, I would say, that I used to do that now are not possible. We would do like, there was a whole process that I did back then, but I spent like $20,000 or $30,000 that looked like spending, but wasn't really spending. You can't really do those things anymore. But what I would recommend now, and also what we did back then, is Amazon gift cards that you're going to spend later. So what we often do is we'll go to the grocery store that gets fuel points for buying an Amazon gift card, buy a $500 gift card, apply that to our balance. We know we're going to use it later. Things like gift cards for other things. You can buy grocery store gift cards. You can buy, say you eat at Chipotle a lot, you can buy Chipotle gift cards, and that kind of just brings your spending forward. So you'd spend that money anyway, but you need to meet a sign-up bonus. So you're just giving the credit card or the gift card now to meet that bonus. And so we've often done those things. You can also very often pay for things like your car insurance in advance. So we would often pay for a full year in advance or 6 months in advance to have that spending. We would have to spend that monthly anyway, so we just did it ahead of time to meet a sign-up bonus. There's a lot of different ways that you can meet these spending requirements now. And then, like I said, spending $3,000 in 3 months now is not nearly as hard as it used to be. Now, like most things cost a lot more than they did 10 years ago. So a lot of the spending requirements have not increased that much, but the costs have. So I don't think as many people have issues spending $3,000 in 3 months as we did back then.
And do make sure that you have the money to pay it off. So don't just be like buying forward, like Jared said, by buying all this stuff, but then not being able to pay off the statement. Like hopefully you have the available $3,000 to actually pay off the statement at the end.
Yep. Nick said I would get the bonuses easily by linking to my Airbnb payments for rent. Yeah, and actually, back when we were doing a lot of international trips, I would very often get Airbnb gift cards and then load that onto my Airbnb account, knowing that we were going to take a trip and spend 1,000 or 2,000 later on Airbnbs, and then we get the spending up front. So
Yeah,
I
and
think that's a smart way to do
if
it.
you're going through Airbnb for your travel therapy assignments, then you can use your credit card. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times you can't pay rent to an individual landlord or something like that with a credit card. It just depends. We're actually renting right now for the current home that we're living in at home, and we have an app, like a portal that we pay through, and so you actually could pay a credit card there if you wanted to, but there is a fee associated with it, so you'd have to determine if the fee would be worth it, would be offset by the number of points you're going to use or not in that situation. Yep. So quite often rent doesn't work for most people, but just find places where you can use a credit card and utilize it when possible.
Allie said she used a secure credit card to build her credit. Yeah, I think it's a great way. If you have bad credit or no credit and you can't get approved for cards, then start with a secured card. You can always get one of those, and then you can basically prove yourself to the companies by building your credit that way.
Yep. All right, so then the big thing is do all these things that you're doing with credit cards, getting a bunch of credit cards, opening and closing a lot of credit cards, that sort of thing. Does it affect your credit?
So if you go crazy with it, like I did initially, it definitely will impact your credit. I think I've told this story before, but I think when I started, my credit score was probably somewhere around 730, 740, something like that. And, I was recently out of school, didn't have any debt except for student loans, never had any delinquencies or anything like that. So decent credit. And then probably a year after I started, when I applied for those 20 cards and got approved for a ton of cards early on, I think it dropped maybe 30 or 40 points. And that wasn't a big deal for me. We didn't have any reason besides getting the cards that we needed to have perfect credit. But that was temporary. And now my credit score is over 800. So in 10 years, I've gotten 64 cards and my credit score went up 50 or 60 points. So no, it doesn't really impact your credit score like you think it would, unless you go crazy and you open a ton of cards. Because if you open a bunch of cards right away, then that shortens your average length of credit, which plays some role in your credit score.
Yeah. Can you list off the different things that impact the credit score?
I can't remember everything, but credit inquiries is one thing. Obviously, how big your balance is compared to the available credit you have is pretty key. And then, of course,
so if you pay your
payments.
Statement all the way down to zero, then your amount of available credit versus how much you're utilizing is a good ratio. So if you always pay it down to zero, and then of all the available credit you have, you're only using $0 to $100 that you haven't paid yet.
Yeah, your utilization ratio. I think that's usually 20 or 30% of your credit score. Then a huge portion, like 50 or 60%, is missed payments. So if you're not missing payments, then that doesn't impact your score at all there.
Length of credit history too. So that's why Jared has kept that one open for so many years. He's got this one for 19 years. So one of your oldest cards, one of your first cards that you get, hopefully if it doesn't have an annual fee, keep that one. Keep that one open as long as possible. Keep a couple of your early ones open. That really helps you. But yeah, the opening and closing isn't going to impact you as much as you think.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're doing 3 or 4 a year, you probably won't notice almost any impact. If it is, maybe 5 or 10 or 15 points, but it's not going to destroy your credit. And like I've said before, in a lot of cases, it helps your credit, because if you don't have that much in terms of available credit, then sometimes your utilization ratio will be high. Whereas now, with all the cards I have open, I think I've got my available credits like over $100,000. So if I have a $3,000 balance on $100,000 available, my utilization ratio is like 3%. So that's not really a concern.
Yep. And then some people worry about the points expiring or losing the points if you close the card.
Yeah, we kind of talked a little bit about that. Any cards that are co-branded, meaning, so say Chase has a United card or Chase has a Southwest card. If you get that card and you get a sign-up bonus and you get 60,000 points, miles, or whatever, those miles automatically go to your Southwest account or your United account or your Hyatt account, whichever the partner is. So if you keep that card for a year, it's got an annual fee, you close it, you don't lose those points. They stay with that partner, and then you have your account with Southwest or United. That's where you would use the points. So you don't have to worry about it there. if a card earns cash back and you're going to close it, you want to make sure to use that cash back before you close it. Otherwise, you will lose it. And then there's some cards that earn like transferable points. So Chase has Ultimate Rewards points that can be transferred to other partners, and American Express has Membership Rewards points. Those cards, if you close them and you don't have another card that you can transfer those points to, then you would lose those. So say you had the Chase Sapphire card and you were going to close the card, you'd want to make sure that you transfer those points or cash them out in some way before you close the card.
And then one last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was strategizing where to use the points. So deciding if you're going to use them with a certain partner or transfer them out to use them for something else. Quite often when you have a certain credit card, you'll be on some website like say Amazon, and it'd be like, did you know you could use your American Express points to pay your Amazon balance, or pay for this thing, or you could get use it to get cash back, or use it to redeem for this gift card. But quite often it's not in your best interest to redeem your points for these types of things. So it's worth Googling and looking up. There's tons of bloggers and stuff out there that'll show you, they'll have charts that'll be like, you can best utilize your Chase points for these partners or for these things. Or, you can always cash it out for your statement balance. Like say you have a $500 balance on your credit card. Well, you can use your points toward paying your balance, but it's not always in your best interest to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some cases, those transferable points, you cash them out, you might get like 70 or 0.7 cents per point, which if you transferred them, like for example, Chase points, if you cash them out for 0.7 cents per point, you could transfer them to Hyatt and in a lot of cases get 2 or 3 cents per point, or you could transfer them to Southwest and get 1.3 cents per point, or you could transfer them to United for like a first class flight and get like 6 cents per point. So yeah, be smart about how you cash out the points because they all have different values, and depending on how you're going to redeem them, most of the time you don't want to use statement credits for points because they just won't have as high of a value.
Yeah. So definitely, levels to this, I guess I would say. When you're first starting to get into it, the most important and basic of things is to not be paying interest. You just want to make sure that you're utilizing this to your advantage and you're not the one getting taken advantage of. You always want to do that. Not carry a balance, not pay any interest, take care of any debts so that you're the one coming out ahead. If you just want to get started and just want to, get a little bit of bang for your buck, use those cash back cards, be getting 2% back on your groceries and your gas and that kind of thing. Maybe you decide, okay, once a year, I'm going to sign up for a travel credit card. I'm going to get 5 free nights and I'm going to use those 5 free nights to take one trip, or I'm going to get, 60,000 points and I'm going to use that for one flight this year. That's amazing. And then kind of once you get that under your belt, if you want to get into more of what we call credit card churning, where you're doing multiple offers per year and kind of keeping a bank of points, that's going to require you to be more disciplined, more organized. You just want to make sure you keep a spreadsheet and keep tabs on all these things. But yeah, the deeper you want to dive into it, the more, travel hacking you can do.
Yep. I would say for the average person, if it's 2 people, for Whitney and I, for example, it's completely reasonable for us to be able to get 1 free trip per year. So if we're getting 3 or 4 cards, we could probably get $1,000 in cash back. We could probably get 2 free international flights round trip, and we could probably get 5 or 6 free hotel nights per year, pretty consistently if we both were applying for a card every quarter. So for most couples, that's pretty reasonable. For individual, you have less flights you have to pay for. So I think it's pretty reasonable for an individual getting 4 cards per year to get 1 free trip per year. And if you think about, most people are taking 1 vacation anyway, or if you're a traveler and you're going to take long trips, I wrote about this a while back, but if you think about on a per night basis, part of the reason we did such long trips is it's once you're in a new place, most of the costs to go to say Europe or Asia are in the flight there and the flight back. But once you're there, it's not that much more expensive than being at home to be there, right? Especially if you're using some hotel points and you're using cheap Airbnbs and things like that. And in some cases, we spent less money when we were out of the country than we did in the country. So if you're taking long trips, then getting the flight there and back is just a massive value for you. And then you get to stay for however many months you want to stay. So for an individual, the free flights, especially free international flights, can be massive. And then getting 4 or 5 free hotel nights a year is also really, really helpful for a lot of your expenses. So if you could save a few $1,000s a year every year for your adult life, that's pretty valuable over time.
Yep. So we want to go over some credit card sign-up bonus recommendations for current offers that we have. In the meantime, if you guys are watching live, if you just want to leave us a comment or ask any more questions that you have, we'll answer those before we wrap up tonight. If you did get value out of this, we would love if you'd hit the thumbs up button, share it with a friend, let them know. Right now, I'm going to go over to our website at traveltherapymentor.com/credit. We update this periodically. We have some information, kind of a summary here of how you can best utilize travel credit cards to your advantage as a travel therapist. A lot of what we kind of went over here, but it's a good summary there. Jared has organized this based on like the different types of credit cards. So the first category we have is for beginners, and this is going to usually be your general cashback cards. And if you're a beginner and you want to start building your credit, this is a good place to start. You're probably going to be more likely to qualify for these cards versus the higher tier.
Yeah, we'll just go over a couple real quick. Chase Freedom Flex. I think if you don't have any credit history, it's a pretty easy card to get approved for. The spending requirement is very low. I think it's the no-brainer one to start with. Like we talked about before, Chase cards get harder to get as you go. So starting with a Chase card makes a lot of sense. So the Chase Freedom Flex, you get $200 in cash back basically after you spend $500 in the first 90 days. So pretty much, I mean, anybody can spend $50 in 90 days. There's no annual fee. There's 0% APR for 15 months. If you're new to credit cards, don't even worry about that. Just pay off your balance. But if you're a little more familiar, a little more savvy, like using those 0% periods can be beneficial. I've used that a lot over the years. And it's got pretty good ongoing rewards as well. So Chase Freedom Flex makes a lot of sense for people to start with. And then right now, Chase Sapphire Preferred is a pretty good offer for people that are a little more advanced or can spend a little bit more money. 75,000 points after spending 5,000 in the first 90 days. Yeah. Those are both really good cards. We both keep those cards. So yeah, if you're looking to get into it, I would say start with those two.
And Jared has some information here about the Chase Sapphire Preferred having good transferable points. So these are the type of points that you're going to transfer to other partners, depending on how you want to utilize them. So for example, he highlights you could transfer them to Southwest, United Airlines, Hyatt hotels. So you're not going to necessarily keep those points and use them within Chase. You're going to transfer them to partners to get the best value.
Yep. So if you want to see all the recommendations, go to traveltherapymentor.com/credit. I guess one other thing to cover, some of you guys might be wondering, is like, okay, I can get $3,000 or $4,000 a year from these sign-up bonuses and from the recurring cashback and stuff, but is it worth the time? And early on, I did spend a lot of time on looking for offers and trying to figure out everything. But like I said, I went way in depth. You don't have to do it that way. Nowadays, I would say I spend 10 minutes a week, maybe less than that a lot of weeks. So yeah, I think it's well worth the time once you invest a little bit of time up front to just understand the basics. From that point, like finding out which card you want to get and looking at offers and stuff doesn't take almost any time at all. When you spend 0 time on it, and I just tell her what card to sign up for. So that 10 minutes or
and
so.
And you too can have that service for free at traveltherapymentor.com/credit. Jared will just tell you which cards to sign up for, and you sign up for them.
Yep. So yeah, it's really not as time consuming as you'd think. Maybe a little bit of upfront investment in time, but then it pays off for basically the rest of your life, or for us, at least 10 years now. I don't know how long credit card companies will continue to offer these things, but as long as they do, I'll take advantage of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you guys go in here, there's some other cards he has on here, cash back, some ones for free flights, some ones for hotel nights. If you have a business, an LLC or something, a business credit card. So yeah, and he switches these out all the time. So these are just the current offers that are pretty good, but he updates it periodically. So check that out. And then we do have some referral links on there as well. If you guys do decide to sign up for any of those cards, we'd appreciate if you would use our referral link, and then we would get points as well. It's the same offer, just a referral link there.
Yep. In general, getting transferable points is always really good. Chase points, American Express points, Citi points, those are transferable points that you can send to different partners. Those are always good. Southwest points have been extremely valuable for us over time. We've gotten a lot of these cards you can get multiple times. For Chase, it usually has to be 2 years between the last time you got that card. So there's some Chase cards I've gotten 4 or 5 times now. I'll get it, cancel it, apply again 2 years later, get it, cancel it, and just continue doing that. Southwest, we've gotten insane value over time. That's almost all of our domestic flights are free on Southwest. Like Whitney said, Hyatt is our favorite hotel brand. They always have really good hotels and very nice, and usually the point value is pretty reasonable, and you can transfer Chase points to Hyatt. That's probably the most common thing we do with our Chase points is transfer them to Hyatt. So probably 100 of those 166 nights that we've gotten for free are Hyatt nights. So that's really been beneficial. For international flights, we really like American Airlines, sometimes United, just depending on what your home airport is. But we've gotten American Airlines cards multiple times over the last 10 years and used those for free international flights. Yeah, I would say Southwest, American Airlines, Hyatt, those are our preferred brands in terms of redeeming points and miles.
Well, hopefully this is helpful to you guys in using some strategies of how to, travel hack and be able to travel more for free. So let us know if you have questions. Feel free to send us a message anytime. We write a lot about our own personal travels on our Fifth Wheel PT blog. That's where Jared writes a lot about finances and then also just our travel adventures. Jared has also written expense reports for every trip that we've ever taken. All the major ones anyway.
Yeah, and also including how many points we redeemed for flights and for hotels and all that. I've kept track of everything over time.
Yeah, so you can check that out if you want to kind of delve a little bit deeper and learn more. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful. Shoot us a message if you have any questions. And yeah, keep an eye out for our end of year giveaways coming up, as well as our sales coming up for Cyber Week. And yeah, we'll try to keep this credit card page updated for you guys as well.
Yep. All right. Take care, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.